Hello and welcome to my channel. If you are learning English and you love history, then you are in the right place. On this channel, we tell true stories about famous people from the past, but we do it in a very simple and clear way, so you can understand every word. Learning English does not have to be boring. It can be fun and interesting when you learn through real stories. Today, we will talk about a very famous woman, Cleopatra. You may have heard her name before. She was a queen. She lived a long time ago in Egypt. Many people know her as a beautiful woman, but she was much more than that. Cleopatra was smart, powerful, and brave. She ruled a country. She made big decisions. She met important people like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. Her story is full of love, danger, power, and mystery. So why are we talking about Cleopatra in an English learning video? Because stories help us learn better. When you learn English with stories, you remember the words more easily. You understand how people talk. You learn how to use grammar in real life. You also learn new vocabulary in context. That means you learn words by seeing how they are used in a real sentence. This is much better than just learning words from a list. In this video, we will speak slowly and clearly, we will use easy words, and we will repeat important words so you can remember them. You don't need to know much English to understand this story, but even if you are already at an intermediate level, this will still be good practice for listening and vocabulary. We also want you to have fun while learning. Cleopatra's life was full of action. She became queen when she was very young. She was in the middle of big wars. She tried to save her country, and her death was one of the most famous in history. People still talk about her today, more than 2,000 years later. That is amazing. So now sit back, relax, and let's go back in time to ancient Egypt. Let's learn the story of Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt, in simple English. Are you ready? Let's begin. Who was Cleopatra? Cleopatra was born more than 2,000 years ago. She was born in the year 69 BC. That means 69 years before Jesus Christ was born. So yes, this is a very old story. Cleopatra was born in the city of Alexandria. This city was in Egypt, but it was also a very Greek city. Why? Because her family was not Egyptian. Her family was Greek. Cleopatra was part of the Ptolemaic dynasty. A dynasty is a family that rules a country for many years. The Ptolemaic dynasty ruled Egypt after the famous general Alexander the Great died. One of Alexander's generals, Ptolemy, became the king of Egypt, and after him, his children and grandchildren ruled too. Cleopatra was one of the last rulers from this family. Even though she ruled Egypt, Cleopatra was not Egyptian by blood. She was Greek. But here is something very special. She was the first ruler from her family who actually learned to speak the Egyptian language. Her father, her grandfather, her great-grandfather, they all spoke only Greek. But Cleopatra wanted to connect with the people of Egypt, so she spoke Egyptian, Greek, and many other languages. In total, Cleopatra could speak up to 9 languages. That's amazing. So what kind of person was she? She was smart. She was curious. She loved to learn. From a young age, she studied science, math, history, astronomy, and medicine. She read books and talked with teachers. She was not only a queen, she was a student and a leader. Some people think Cleopatra was only famous because of her beauty, but that is not true. Yes, she was beautiful, but her real power came from her mind, her voice, and her confidence. She knew how to speak, how to listen, and how to make people follow her. Many people, even powerful men, listened to Cleopatra when she talked. Now, let's talk a little about her family. Her full name was Cleopatra VII Philopator. The number VII means she was the 7th Cleopatra in her family. Her father's name was Ptolemy XII. When he died, Cleopatra became queen. She was only 18 years old. That is very young. She ruled Egypt with her younger brother, who was just 10 years old. His name was also Ptolemy, yes. Many people in this family had the same name, but the two of them had many problems. They were both very young, and they both wanted power. Later in this story, we will see how Cleopatra lost her power and how she got it back. For now, remember this. Cleopatra was not just a beautiful queen. She was a young woman with a sharp mind, a deep education, and strong leadership. She came from a Greek family, but she became one of the most famous rulers in Egyptian history. She was ready to fight for her place on the throne. She was ready to do whatever it took to lead her people, and this is just the beginning. Vocabulary. Dynasty, a family that rules a country. Ruler, someone who has power over a country. Language, the words we speak. Quint, a woman who rules a country. History, the story of the past. Cleopatra's education and skills. Let's continue the story of Cleopatra. In the last part, we talked about how Cleopatra became queen when she was very young, but before she became queen, she was a student. She spent many years learning, and that is what made her a strong and smart leader. Cleopatra was very different from many rulers of her time. Many kings and queens did not like to study. They liked power and money. But Cleopatra loved books, science, and knowledge. She wanted to understand the world. She studied many subjects. She learned about math, astronomy, medicine, philosophy, and history. She also learned how to speak well, how to talk to people in a smart and powerful way. Most of her learning happened in Alexandria. Alexandria was not just any city, it was one of the most important cities in the world. It had the Library of Alexandria, the biggest and most famous library in the ancient world. In that library, there were thousands of scrolls, old books written by hand. Cleopatra read many of them. She learned from teachers and scholars. A scholar is a person who studies and teaches about a subject. Cleopatra listened to them, asked questions, and remembered everything. But her most amazing skill was languages. Cleopatra could speak at least 9 languages. She spoke Greek, Egyptian, Hebrew, Arabic, and more. This was very special. Most rulers in her family only spoke Greek, but Cleopatra wanted to speak to her people in their own language, Egyptian. This helped her connect with them. It helped her become a true leader of Egypt, not just a foreign queen. Let's stop for a moment and think. How many people today speak 9 languages? Not many. Even speaking 2 or 3 languages is hard. But Cleopatra was a true polyglot, a person who speaks many languages. She used this skill in meetings, in politics, and when talking with people from other countries. She didn't need translators. She could speak for herself. This made her powerful. People listened to her not just because she was queen, but because she was smart, well-educated, and full of ideas. And she didn't just learn things for fun, she used her knowledge in real life. For example, Cleopatra was interested in medicine. She learned about herbs, treatments, and health. She even wrote a book about beauty and skincare. Some people say she used milk baths to make her skin soft. She mixed oils and perfumes. She understood how to take care of the body and mind. Cleopatra also studied philosophy, the big ideas about life, people, and power. She thought deeply about how a ruler should act. She was not only a queen, but also a thinker. She used her mind as her greatest tool. So why is this important? Because it shows us something powerful. Learning makes us stronger. Cleopatra is remembered today not only because of her beauty or her love stories, but because she was curious, smart, and always learning. She is a great example of how knowledge can give you power. And now let's move to the next part of her life, when she begins her fight for the throne of Egypt. Vocabulary scholar, a person who studies a subject deeply. Library, a place with many books. Knowledge, the things you know. Medicine, the science of health and healing. Polyglot, a person who speaks many languages. Cleopatra's fight for the throne. Now, let's talk about how Cleopatra became the true ruler of Egypt. This part of the story is full of drama, danger, and decisions. Are you ready? Let's begin. Cleopatra became queen when she was 18 years old, but she did not rule Egypt alone. She ruled with her 10-year-old brother, Ptolemy XIII. In her family, brothers and sisters often married each other and ruled together. This may sound strange to us today, but it was normal in her time. At first, Cleopatra and her brother were supposed to rule together, but it did not work. They started to fight for power. Cleopatra was older and smarter. She wanted to make her own decisions, but her brother had advisors, older men who controlled him and wanted to push Cleopatra out. After just a few years, things got worse. Cleopatra's brother and his advisors removed her from power. They told the people that only Ptolemy was king. Cleopatra had to leave the palace. She went into exile. That means she had to leave her home and hide. But Cleopatra was not a woman who gave up easily. She had a plan. At the same time, something big was happening in the Roman world. A Roman general named Julius Caesar came to Egypt. He came to help solve a conflict between Cleopatra and her brother, but also he wanted Egypt to be a friend of Rome. Now comes one of the most famous stories in history. Cleopatra wanted to meet Julius Caesar, but she could not just walk into the palace. It was too dangerous. So what did she do? She had her servants roll her up in a carpet. Yes, a big rolled up carpet. Then they carried the carpet into the palace as a gift for Caesar. When the carpet was unrolled in front of Caesar, surprise, Cleopatra was inside. This story is famous because it shows how clever and brave she was. She took a big risk, and it worked. Julius Caesar was impressed. He saw that Cleopatra was not only beautiful, but also smart and bold. He decided to support her. With Caesar's help, Cleopatra fought against her brother's army. There was a small war, and in the end, Cleopatra won. Her brother, Ptolemy XIII, died during the war. After that, Cleopatra became the main ruler of Egypt. She was now queen, and no one could take her place. But Caesar asked her to share the throne again, this time with another younger brother, Ptolemy XIV. Cleopatra agreed, but everyone knew who was really in charge. Later, Cleopatra had a son with Caesar. His name was Caesarion, which means Little Caesar. She hoped he would one day rule both Egypt and Rome. So, what did we learn? Cleopatra was not just lucky, she was smart, brave, and very good at making alliances. She used her mind, her charm, and her courage to win back her crown. She showed that a woman, even in a world ruled by men, could fight for power and win. But her story with Rome was just beginning. Vocabulary: exile, being forced to leave your home. Alliance, a partnership or friendship for a goal. Throne, the seat or position of a king or queen. Risk, something dangerous you choose to do. Advisor, a person who gives advice to a ruler. Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. Now that Cleopatra was queen again, she had a new goal. She wanted to protect Egypt and keep her country strong and independent. But she knew something very important. To do this, she needed a powerful ally, someone who could help her if Egypt was in danger. That ally was Julius Caesar. At this time, Rome was the most powerful country in the world. Rome had a big army, a strong government, and many leaders. And Julius Caesar was one of the most famous and powerful men in Rome. After Cleopatra met Caesar in the palace with her clever carpet trick, he helped her win back her throne. But their relationship didn't stop there. Cleopatra and Caesar became more than allies, they became lovers. Some people say Caesar was interested in Cleopatra because of her beauty, but others believe he respected her mind, her courage, and her leadership. He saw that she was not just a pretty face, she was a true queen. Together, they spent time in Egypt. Caesar stayed with Cleopatra for a few months. They traveled on the Nile River, had feasts, and talked about politics. They were both smart, ambitious, and knew how to use power. Cleopatra became pregnant, and in 47 before Christ, she gave birth to a son. She named him Ptolemy 15th, but people called him Caesarion, which means Little Caesar. Cleopatra believed this child could one day be the next great ruler, maybe of both Egypt and Rome. After some time, Caesar left Egypt and returned to Rome. But Cleopatra did something very bold. She went to Rome too. She brought Caesarion and stayed in a grand house outside the city. This was very unusual. People in Rome were shocked. They had never seen a foreign queen living so close to their leader. Some people were angry. They didn't like how much power Cleopatra seemed to have over Caesar. But Caesar did not care. He even built a statue of Cleopatra in a Roman temple, something no other foreign queen had ever had. This was a sign of deep respect. Sadly, their story did not end well. In 44 before Christ, Julius Caesar was killed by a group of Roman senators. They stabbed him because they thought he had too much power. He was planning to become dictator for life, and many people feared he would become a king. When Cleopatra heard about Caesar's death, she was shocked and afraid. Rome was full of danger, so she returned to Egypt with her son Caesarion. Now she had a new challenge, ruling Egypt alone with no Roman support. But Cleopatra did not give up. She stayed strong. She focused on her country and her son. She still had a dream to make Caesarion the next great ruler. This part of Cleopatra's life shows us how powerful and dangerous politics could be. It also shows us how Cleopatra used her intelligence, her relationships, and her strength to protect herself and her kingdom. But the story is not over yet. Soon, Cleopatra will meet another powerful Roman leader, Mark Antony, and their love story will change history once again. Vocabulary: bully, a friend or partner in politics. Lover, someone in a romantic relationship. Pregnant, expecting a baby. Statue, a stone or metal figure. Ambitious, wanting success or power. Dictator, a leader with full control. Cleopatra and Mark Antony, love and war. After Julius Caesar died, Cleopatra returned to Egypt. She was now alone with her young son, Caesarion. But the world was still dangerous. Rome was changing. New leaders were fighting for power. One of these leaders was Mark Antony. Mark Antony was a strong Roman general. He was brave, popular, and powerful. He had worked with Caesar and wanted to continue his legacy. After Caesar's death, Antony became one of the most important men in Rome. In 41 before Christ, Antony sent a message to Cleopatra. He wanted to meet her, he needed money and help for his army. Cleopatra saw an opportunity. This could be her new Roman ally. So Cleopatra sailed to meet him in a beautiful boat, dressed as the goddess Aphrodite. She arrived with music, perfumes, and gold. She wanted to make a strong impression, and she did. Mark Antony was amazed. He fell in love with Cleopatra almost immediately. But, just like before, this was not only about love, this was also about politics. Cleopatra gave Antony money. In return, he promised to protect Egypt. He also agreed to make her son Caesarion more important in Rome. Soon, they became lovers. Antony spent time in Egypt, and Cleopatra had 3 children with him, 2 sons and a daughter. They lived a royal life, full of parties, feasts, and celebrations. But not everyone was happy about this. In Rome, people were angry. They thought Antony had forgotten Rome and become too close to Cleopatra. Antony was even married to a Roman woman, the sister of another powerful man, Octavian. Octavian was Caesar's adopted son. He wanted to become the only ruler of Rome. So when he saw Antony with Cleopatra, he saw them as a threat. In 32 before Christ, war began. It was Rome against Cleopatra and Antony. The final battle happened at Actium, on the sea. Cleopatra and Antony fought with their ships, but Octavian's navy was stronger. Cleopatra and Antony lost the battle. They escaped and returned to Egypt. Now they were in great danger. Octavian followed them to Egypt. Cleopatra and Antony knew they could not win. They didn't want to be prisoners. They didn't want to be taken to Rome in chains. So in 30 before Christ, Mark Antony took his own life. When Cleopatra heard this, she was heartbroken. She also decided to end her life. We don't know exactly how she died. Some say she let a poisonous snake, an asp, bite her. Others say she used poison hidden in a hairpin. What we do know is that Cleopatra died as she lived, with courage and on her own terms. After her death, Octavian became the first Roman emperor. He took Caesarion and had him killed. Egypt became a part of the Roman Empire, and Cleopatra was the last pharaoh of ancient Egypt. Vocabulary: legacy, something left behind after death; threat, something dangerous; navy, army, on the sea; poison, something that can kill when eaten or touched; pharaoh, a king or queen of ancient Egypt. Cleopatra's story is not just about love or power. It's about a woman who used her intelligence, beauty, and strength to fight for her country until the very end. What Cleopatra left behind, her legacy. Now that Cleopatra's life is over, we ask a big question: why do we still remember her today? She died more than 2,000 years ago, but her name is still famous all around the world. People write books about her. They make movies and plays. They paint her, sing about her, and study her life. So, what makes Cleopatra so special? Let's start with her biggest legacy. Cleopatra was the last pharaoh of ancient Egypt. After her death, Egypt became part of the Roman Empire. She was the last person to rule Egypt as a free and independent country. That alone makes her important. But there is more. Cleopatra was a symbol of something very rare in history: a woman in power. In a world ruled by men, she stood out. She made her own decisions, she led armies, she met with kings and generals. She was not a queen who sat quietly in the palace. She was active, strong, and involved in politics. Many people remember Cleopatra because of her beauty, but we now understand that her greatest power was her mind. She spoke many languages, studied science and medicine, and used her intelligence in every part of her life. She also left behind stories full of love, war, and courage. People are fascinated by her relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. These were not just love stories, they were also political partnerships. Together, they tried to change the world. And even though Cleopatra's life ended in tragedy, her story has inspired millions. Why? Because Cleopatra represents something powerful. A woman who did not follow the rules. A woman who fought for her country. A woman who stayed strong even when everything was against her. She also became a symbol in art and pop culture. In paintings, she is shown as beautiful and mysterious. In movies, she is often played by famous actresses like Elizabeth Taylor. In music and fashion, people still use her image, the eye makeup, the gold jewelry, the royal look. She became a true icon. But most of all, Cleopatra's story reminds us that history is full of real people, with hopes, dreams, and difficult choices. She was not perfect, she made mistakes, but she was real. She lived, she ruled, she loved, and she lost, just like many people today. So what can we learn from Cleopatra? We can learn that knowledge is power, language connects people, confidence and courage can change your life. And yes, even in hard times, you can still fight for what you believe in. Vocabulary: Independent, free, not controlled by others. Courage, being brave. Icon, someone who is very famous and symbolic. Mistakes, doing something wrong, inspire to give someone ideas or hope. Fun and surprising facts about Cleopatra. Now that we have told Cleopatra's full story, let's finish with something fun. In this part, we'll share some interesting and surprising facts about Cleopatra. Some of them may make you smile, some may even surprise you. Let's go! Fact 1. She may have had a pet crocodile. Yes, really. Some stories say Cleopatra had a pet crocodile, or even many of them in a special pool. Crocodiles were important animals in Egyptian culture. They were a symbol of strength and power. Fact 2. Cleopatra loved drama and performance. Cleopatra knew how to make an entrance. She often dressed like goddesses, used gold and bright colors, and even arrived to meetings on a golden boat. She understood the power of appearance and how it could influence people. Fact 3. Nobody knows what Cleopatra really looked like. We see many pictures and statues of Cleopatra today, but they are all different. Some show her with a long nose, others with a soft face. There are no real portraits made during her life, so her true appearance is still a mystery. But many people say her personality and charm were more powerful than beauty. Conclusion, wrapping up Cleopatra's story. So, after all the incredible facts and stories about Cleopatra, what can we take away from her life? We've learned a lot about this fascinating woman, but more than that, we've learned how history can teach us valuable lessons. Let's talk about some of the most important things we can learn from Cleopatra's life and why it matters to you, especially if you're learning English. Lesson 1. Be smart and brave. Cleopatra was smart. She knew how to use her intelligence to make strong decisions. She spoke multiple languages, studied science, and always found ways to solve problems. She showed us that it's not enough to be beautiful, it's your mind, your strategy, and your knowledge that truly make a difference. Whether you are studying history, English, or anything else, remember that learning makes you stronger. Lesson 2. Always fight for what you believe in. Even when things were tough for Cleopatra, she didn't give up. She fought for her country, for her people, and for her family. Cleopatra was a woman who faced many challenges, but she always found a way to fight back. She didn't let the world tell her she couldn't do something. This can inspire us all to be brave, to keep pushing forward even when we feel like giving up. If Cleopatra can do it, so can we. Lesson 3. History is alive. One of the most exciting things about studying history is realizing that it's not just in books. History is alive, and it teaches us about real people with real dreams, mistakes, and victories. Cleopatra's story is not just about kings and queens. It's about decisions, relationships, and personal struggles. This is why studying history is such a fun and important way to learn English, because we're learning about the lives of real people who are connected to us in different ways. Lesson 4. Never stop learning. Lastly, Cleopatra's life shows us how important learning is. She never stopped studying. She learned about medicine, languages, and how to be a great leader. Even though she was a queen, she didn't just sit back. She worked hard to be the best. And as a student of English, that's the key to success. Every day, you learn something new, whether it's a new word, a new grammar rule, or a new idea. Keep going, because learning is the real treasure. The vocabulary. Intelligence, being smart, using your brain. Challenge, a difficult situation. Struggle, something hard to deal with. Victory, a win, a success. Treasure, something very valuable. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through Cleopatra's fascinating life. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Remember, learning history and learning English are connected. The more you know about the past, the better you understand the world today, and the better you can speak and write about it. Before we go, don't forget to like this video if you learned something new, comment your favorite fact about Cleopatra, and subscribe for more exciting stories. History is full of amazing people and events, and we'll keep bringing those stories to you. I hope to see you again in our next video. Until then, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep dreaming. Take care and see you soon.